Well, I don't know if I'm negative. I'm not sure what to call it, but I was waiting for the meltdown in the second half, and the Blazers, right on cue, got scorched. Chris Burkhardt dropped a remarkable stat on me following the game tonight. The Blazers got hammered by the Warriors 123 to 105. He goes, "Hey, Chad." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" Warriors, third quarter scoring, 39 points. The Blazers in the second half, 40. And that's pretty much all you need to know about that. It was a massive 29-8 run in the third when the Warriors just ran away with the game and ended up dominating the Trailblazers, a game where Portland really had control in the first half. They came out strong. They looked good. They led by as many as 23 points. And then in that second half, I don't know if Steve Kerr chewed out his guys or what the deal was, but we saw better energy from the Warriors in the second half. They really started to attack Portland. I think they were using a box and one on Dame, and then they really got their offense going. Multiple guys touching the ball. You saw them getting a lot of back cuts, a lot of easy buckets in the paint. Draymond Green was a monster out there with his facilitation, and then Jordan Poole and company able to get enough of those shots that weren't falling in the first half to drop, and the Warriors run away with it 123 to 105. A lot of frustrating things if you're a Trailblazer fan. Watching Cam Reddish out there on the floor, very painful. He's not so good, if I'm putting it nicely. I do appreciate how Dame and Thibault both competed tonight, but in the end, the Blazers just don't have enough. They just don't have enough. And you can't expect too much from the group they're putting out there on the floor right now. You've got Dame, and you've got Jeremy Grant, and you've got, what else? Drew Eubanks, who's been very productive for them, but he's having to start out of necessity because of injury. Cam Reddish, who hadn't played a game since December until he arrived in Portland. You've got that guy in the starting lineup right now. There's no Ant. There's not enough guys on the floor who can make shots. And I thought Jeremy Grant played very poorly there in the second half. And he's starting to show signs of returning to the Jeremy Grant that we knew before he arrived in Portland. He had the great, first couple of months of the season. But now I'm having a bit of a pause on how much money I think the Blazers should give that guy. So it was a rough night. Portland now going to have to return home to Portland to get ready for New Orleans. The Pelicans are going to be in town. They're going to play a game tomorrow. Now, if you're looking at the minutes played, Damian Lillard played 35 tonight. Jeremy Grant played 36. And the reason why I bring those guys up, they're going to be key if the Blazers are going to have the energy to bounce back and get a win tomorrow against New Orleans before they kick off the 6-game road trip in Atlanta on Friday. And I'm not really sure what's going on with Chauncey Billups, but would like to see him get his head in the game a little bit in terms of, making sure his team's in the right position. They understand what they need to do. But I just don't really see a lot of work from Chauncey. The issues I have, really, he was brought in as a defensive guy. The defense still stinks. It's brutal. This team doesn't defend well. And I think the one thing, if I could point to one thing that frustrates me the most about this team, they're one-dimensional. They're either going to make shots, Dame has a big night, or it's Dame and Ant. But if they're not making shots, and we saw this in the second half tonight, when those shots stop falling, they don't have any other way to win games. They can't lean on their defense. They're 27th in the league. They're not a good rebounding team. They can't manufacture points. They rely on their key guys, Dame and Ant, and sometimes Grant to make shots. And if those guys aren't making shots, it's a big-time problem. But they got annihilated in that second half tonight. Brutal. But really not sure what you're supposed to expect out of this group with no Nurk, no Ant, and Justice Winslow. Short-handed. It's basically a one-man team, essentially, and this is what you got. But it's rough. And it's just more of the same. We've seen a lot of this over the last several years where it's kind of Dame and spare parts. At least that's how I see it. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Chris Burkhardt is here. We're on YouTube. If you're driving around and you get home, you can pop on YouTube, pull up Rip City Radio, and you'll see the live link right there. And you can check us out here in studio. Let's go out to Camas. Kevin's out there. Kevin, I appreciate the call. Kevin, turn down your radio. What's up? You're on the fifth quarter. And now you're not. Kevin, let me just give you a little bit of help here. The radio, if you have it turned up and then I come to you, there's a delay. And so when you hear me say Kevin and then you get the delay, Kevin, it's going to mess you all up. Trust me. It's going to throw you off. You're not going to be able to get it done, and you got to shut it down. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number, 503-248-0620. Here are some more of the numbers from the game tonight. Cam Reddish, 29 minutes, 10 points on 4 of 10 shooting, had a couple of rebounds. Jeremy Grant, 36 minutes, 24 points, had 5 rebounds and 3 assists. Just 5 of 17 shooting, only 1 of 8 from downtown. Matisse Thybulle, I thought, played really well. He competed well and played hard and executed on both ends. 15 points in 25 minutes, 5 of 6 from 3. And then Dame tonight, 9 of 21, 25 points, 7 assists, 35 minutes. Off the bench, Trendon Watford, 2 points in 22 minutes, 7 rebounds, had a couple of steals. Nasir Little, I'm not sure what he did to upset coach, but he got just 15 minutes tonight, scored 7 points. Shaedon Sharpe with 13 on 6 of 11 shooting. And then basically nothing from Keon Johnson, Kevin Knox, or Jabari Walker. For the Warriors tonight, it was Jordan Poole who led the way with 29 points, 6 assists, just 10 of 24 from the field, 3 of 10 from 3, but he made a number of key plays there in the second half. They got 23 points from Klay Thompson, who was 3 of 7 from 3, 8 of 21 from the floor. And then Kevon Looney, like usual, 14 points, 7 rebounds, had a couple of assists, 7 of 8 shooting. Draymond Green, 4 of 5, 12 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists, and impacted the game in so many different ways. And they got a very productive 21 points from Dante DiVincenzo on 8 of 11 shooting. He was 5 of 7 from 3. Let's go back out to the phones. Kevin in Camas. Kevin, appreciate the call. You're back up, buddy. What's up?
Hey, yeah, it's good to be with you again, Chad. I think what you just said a couple minutes ago of the team right now being kind of Dame and some spare parts is pretty much what it is. And, I mean, I canceled my cable subscription earlier in the season when I just saw what the team was looking like after the first 20 games or whatever. But I got a couple questions for you. When I saw that Chauncey didn't play Dame and what's his name?
Jeremy Grant.
Grant. Yeah, the game after the All-Star break, I just kind of walked away from it and thought, Tank 2.0 is on. These guys have had, even with the concussion thing and Dame playing in the All-Star game and all that, these guys have had 9 days rest. And because they had to sit on a plane for 7 hours, I mean, I get how grueling that is, but come on. That they need the night off when they're supposed to be trying to win games. So I got the sense that they're just, they're in Tank 2.0 mode, and that doesn't even really bother me because the season's a washout, and if they can get into the lottery and get another first-round pick, they're so much better off with the kinds of things they can bargain with this summer.
Well, I definitely agree with that. Now, in regards to the guys sitting out that first game at Sacramento following the All-Star break, from my understanding, Kevin, that was a decision that came from the medical staff. It was not a Coach Billups decision. The players have input, but the team basically did not allow them to play. There were a couple of issues that you need to know about. Number one, and I've talked to a few guys about this, anytime you have catastrophic injuries tend to take place when guys' routines and rhythm is thrown completely off. So after sitting on a plane for 7 hours, deboarding, staying at the hotel, getting back on the plane, flying into Sacramento the day of, they thought it would be best and probably the safest way to protect those two guys from catastrophic injury. The other part, too, is, from my understanding, the team was very upset about the league not rescheduling the game because of weather, because there's no way they could get out of town. And part of the protest was to sit Dame and Grant, and that's why those two guys didn't go. It wasn't a coach decision. And while I do agree with your assessment of the draft lottery, I don't think they're tanking yet. I think what they're going to do is exactly what Cronin said at the deadline. They'll let these guys play for now and make a push. Now, I don't think a push is going to happen, but they're going to let them go for it. And then if they go through a losing streak or if injuries take over, that's where you're going to see them take their foot off the gas and really veer towards the draft lottery. But that's kind of where things are at there.
Yeah. Hey, I got a question for you about the roster for next year because they don't have a whole lot in the way of tradable assets.
Uh-huh.
What would you think about Jeremy Grant starting at the 2 spot and package Ant, because he's one of the guys who's got some real value, and they're going to have to give up value to get value.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about moving Grant to the 2 because he's rangy, he's long, he can shoot, he can defend? I think that could be a really disruptive team if they can get a real power forward, because I don't think he's a power forward.
Well, I think what I would do is I would look at deals involving potentially Ant to go out and get a legit power forward if that guy's available, and then play him at the 4 and let Grant stay at the 3. So you've got length and guys who can defend and shoot the 3 at your forward spots. And then you can make a decision on what you want to do at the 2. Maybe you slide Shaden Sharp in and start him next to Dame at the 2 with his size and length. Maybe it's another guard. But I guess what I'm trying to say is this team is more than just one player away. So I think the areas at which you're looking for, I think primarily power forward or small forward to pair someone next to Grant. And then I think you want to look at, obviously they need help on the bench because they don't have any guys who can really fill it up off the bench. And then you've got to look at upgrading the center position. If you can upgrade Nurk, then you obviously want to take advantage of that. But I think those are kind of the areas you're looking at. Definitely need a forward to play next to Grant. You need to upgrade the bench so you get some scoring pop off the bench. And then if you can upgrade the center position, you probably want to do that too.
Yeah, agree with all that.
Well, I appreciate the phone call, Kevin. You might have saved yourself a few headaches by canceling the cable subscription. Let's go out to Mike in Northeast. Mike, you're up on the 5th quarter. What was your take on what you saw go down in San Francisco tonight?
Oh, my God. Can you please explain to me what the defensive strategy of this team is? Because I'm absolutely lost. Why don't I ever see any offensive plays? I just don't get what's going on.
Yeah, you saw the same thing I did tonight. I saw a lot of guys, especially in the second half, attacking the paint, getting at the rim with no plan, and getting stuck and turning it over. It's very frustrating.
I swear you could play that kind of ball at the community center.
Yeah, and the defense is probably the most frustrating thing because Billups was brought in with the idea of him being a defensive guy, a defensive guru, and he would get guys to be able to play and step up their game on that end of the floor, and they're getting annihilated on a nightly basis with their defense. We saw the breakdowns there in the second half. The Warriors, figured out the riddle on how to attack their zone, and then once they started, moving the basketball, once they got a couple of rotations, the Blazers' defense would break down, and guys were getting wide-open looks. We saw a bunch of guys getting easy buckets off of back cuts. I mean, it's just more of the same. And I believe that the Trailblazers lead the league in double-digit leads blown this season in the NBA, which is unfortunate.
That's painful.
Yeah.
That is very painful.
Yeah, it's brutal. Absolutely brutal. And Chauncey Billups, I don't know. Like, I like the hire when they brought him in. I think Chauncey's a good dude. I just haven't seen the production from him or his coaching staff yet in terms of production on the floor. That's all.
I haven't seen it, and it's been going on a long time. I don't know what to think. I heard Nate McMillan's available.
Yeah. Yeah, let's bring in Nate. He can run some guys into the ground. I appreciate the phone call. Let's go to Newburgh. Rhodey in Newburgh. Rhodey, you're up on the 5th quarter. What was your take on the meltdown in the Bay Area?
Well, good evening, Chad. Thanks for taking my call. Well, I'd like to accentuate that first half. I think what you've seen is what we're capable of. We just aren't capable of doing 2 halves like that. You could see Lillard, especially at the beginning of that 3rd quarter, his legs, they were gone. But that first half was about as good as we can play with the roster we've got. They ran out of gas that second half. I know Golden State made some adjustments, but I really believe that they, did the best they could, and they let it all go that first half. And the second half, especially with Lillard, his legs were just gassed, I thought.
Yeah, there's no question. And I'm glad you brought that up, Rhodey, because I'm concerned about Dame moving forward, especially heading into the road trip. There's so much pressure on him because he has to do so much for them to have a chance to win right now, especially with no Nurk and no Ant and the lack of scoring. And he's coming off that game where he just pumped in 71. and now he's got to play the second of a back-to-back tomorrow, coming off a 35-minute night. How much can he do, and how much can he continue to shoulder at this stage in his career? I mean, he's a one-man show out there right now. Yeah, it's just brutal. All right, we'll come back on fifth quarter. Chris Burkhardt is here. Burkhardt, my man. What's up, brother? You weren't surprised by that meltdown, were you? Were you like me? You were waiting for it?
No, I got takes, but, you always got to get to those important callers first. That's okay. That's okay.
What was the most frustrating part for you watching this game unfold tonight?
Dude, I think it was just that you knew this was going to happen, right? It's par for the course with this team sometimes. I think they got to set a record for a team that gets down by 20 points, not just losing the games, but and plenty of coaching. I don't know if I have time to get into it before we go to break here, but Nasir Little, that one irritates me. It irritates me. There's zero reason that Cam Reddish should not be playing more than Nasir Little.
I agree.
Cam Reddish hasn't played a game of basketball for 2 months till Portland traded for him and has not looked good.
Well, let me ask you then. So it's a great question. What do you think Nasir did to frustrate Billups to get in his doghouse? Like, because you've been around coaches enough. What do you think it might be?
This is the thing. He's been asked about it. Someone asked on Twitter the other day, and Dan Marang answered it and goes, Chauncey says it's his defense. He needs to be better defensively. And then that irritates me because it's not as if Cam Reddish or Keon Johnson, who was playing tonight, who played almost the exact same amount of minutes, or Trendon Watford is beating the world defensively, right? And you are hindering his progression because Nasir Little this season, when healthy, has shown mass improvements offensively. So prior to the trade deadline, everyone was talking about needing a bench scorer, right? You needed someone off the bench to help that unit to score buckets. And you have a guy, you're just not wanting to play him because you don't like his defense. But nobody's defense is good. But then again tonight, you cannot tell me or convince me in any world, Chad, that Cam Reddish should be playing more minutes than Matisse Thybulle, who is an all-league defender, who is a legit stud, one of the best defensive players in the NBA and has the accolade to prove as much, and then sit there and watch the defense just be atrocious in the second half while he rides the bench and you give mass minutes to Cam Reddish.
I agree. Cam Reddish is a bum. Let's just be real, man. The guy is not good at basketball.
He reminds me, I told you this off topic.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
He reminds me of Noah Vonleh in the fact that when you look at the guy, it takes you 2 seconds to go, yeah, he is a basketball player. Like, he has it, right? He's got the height. He's got the length. He looks freaky athletic. Noah Vonleh had the size. Noah Vonleh was a brick house. And then go out there and get the what we all call now the Vonleh treatment, right? Where you're named a starter, but you're only a starter because your name's on the paper, and then you sub out because you just aren't great. And yes, he's bounced around. He's still, playing, but he's a rotation guy, end of the bench guy. That's Cam Reddish. I like Cam Reddish on the roster. Like, if there is if players are hurt and you need to go run with him for a game or two, I'm fine with that. But 30 minutes a night as your starting small forward, playing more minutes than Nasir Little and Matisse Thybulle blows my mind.
How did you describe Noah Vonleh?
What'd I say? I can't remember.
You said brick house.
Brick house. There you go. Yeah, he's a brick house.
He's a brick house. He's a brick house, which is a great song. You said it. I had to play it. All right?
That's fair.
All right, if you're on hold, stay there. 503-248-0620. The Blazers' defense tonight, terrible. They got smoked in that second half. The Warriors pull away and take it 123-105. Can't wait to hear Chauncey tonight. I'm sure he made a lot of sense after that get lost. You're right, though. Cam Reddish getting big minutes over Nasir is stupid. And yeah, you have Thybulle, who is the only all-team defender on the squad. We don't need to play that guy. We'll just give him 15 minutes. All right, 503-248-0620. That's Chris. I'm Chad. You got the fifth quarter.
Play of the Night is brought to you by Collection Connection, the leaders in framing sports memorabilia, team awards, and so much more. Collection Connection offers you a one-stop, full-service framing experience. Find them online at COLLCONN.com.
To the corner for Grant. Lamb's in front of him. Jab step. Now he drives the baseline. Throws it to Watford. Watford underneath. In traffic. They're cutting sharp, and he hammers it down. Cocked it back and slammed it home.
Shaden Sharp said, I'm still here.
All right, fifth quarter, Warriors whacked the Blazers tonight, 123-105. Frustrating game. Portland now returning to the Rose City to take on the Pelicans tomorrow night at Moda Center. Game scheduled to tip off at 7 o'clock. Now, Burkhart, you just said something that made a lot of sense to me about the frustration of being a Trailblazer fan or being someone that likes the team and covers the team and lives in this town. What is it exactly?
I think it's frustrating having a team that you love, a team that you enjoy, a team that you want to have succeed, and knowing that the one thing they need to do is pick a lane, but they will not pick a lane until the team is sold.
Yeah.
Until Burt Cold is out of the equation, who handicaps his management, until Jody Allen is out of the equation, an owner that is not as invested as her brother was, the team's not going to pick a lane. Because you have callers who come in right now and go, oh, well, she said she's not selling. And of course she said they're not selling because there's so much legal jargon that they have to go through to even get to that point, right? His estate was huge. And they have to go through that piece by piece by piece. So it's going to take some time. But until that happens, then you're stuck in this purgatory. Because I think Joe Cronin has the makeup to be a good GM. I like the way he talks to the media. I like the way he lays things out to us. But if you think that he has free reign over everything, you don't. Neil had a little bit, but you can't say that he didn't get pulled back the minute Paul passed away.
Well, I do know that Neil had much more autonomy over things than, Cronin does. That's the reason why Cronin was hired, is because Burt wanted someone to do his bidding. And I don't blame Cronin for taking the job, because you take that job if it's offered to you.
It pays well. You get to put it on the resume.
But it's got to be frustrating for Cronin, because there's going to be times where he's making decisions that he doesn't believe are the best, but he's doing it because that's what Burt wants to do.
Case in point, the Clippers trade.
Yes, which was done too quick when they should have waited and probably could have gotten more. There's no question. Now, I think the other issue is that you're right about picking a lane. Are you going to go all in and build around Dame? Or are you going to accrue assets for the future? I mean, what are you going to do? Because now they're kind of doing a little bit of both, and you can't go in two directions.
And they've been doing it this entire time. You got to pick a lane. Do you build around Dame, or do you say that Ant and Shaden are your future? Because they're trying to build around Dame and build their future, and in doing so, they're afraid to get rid of their best assets to build either direction, right? And then same thing right now with, do you tank to better your lot with a pick, or do you make moves and try to make a playoff run? Well, they haven't picked a lane yet. They're going to, like I told you, the worst case scenario for this team is to make the play-in and lose. I want them to get to the play-in and advance to the playoff. That's my hope, right? Unlock the picks. You want them to tank to have a better percentage at winning the lottery, which could happen, especially since they've redone how those percentages works. Teams outside of the top three have a better chance now, right? Worst case scenario is they play just well enough to make the play-in and then get bounced, and they enter the draft lottery with a 2% chance of actually getting something.
That's painful. Let's go out to David in Salem. David, you're up on the fifth quarter. What was your take on the meltdown in San Francisco tonight?
You hit it on the bell when you talked about Chauncey. I'm losing confidence in him. I just am, and I miss Terry Stotts. When you have some of these losses where he fails to make a decision far as, taking a timeout and resetting things for the team. I understand all the injuries. I understand this whole thing. I've been following the Blazers for 50 years, Chad. 50 years.
That's a long time.
And I was a little kid when my father and I would go, and my brother would go to the Memorial Coliseum and watch the Blazers when they first started. And I've watched them go through numerous coaches. And I think Terry Stotts got scapegoated. I think I would still love to see him coach.
because and then they hung on to Chauncey Billups, and he was a choice of who? The guy that they fired, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. And keep this in mind,
and
though.
I'm not saying he's a bad coach. He's just a rookie coach, or what do you say, a sophomore coach in his second year of coaching, and it's just not good enough. If you really want to win for Damian Lillard or just the team, I'm more of a team guy than supporting just Damian Lillard. I like Damian Lillard a lot. He's a class act, but to have a winning team, you have to have a great coach, and I just don't think they have the coaching staff to make quick decisions to make sure that the Blazers can win some of these close games. And I think he just got out-coached tonight.
It's a good phone call, David. You're right. They did get out-coached. You know who had the advantage on the sideline in the game tonight. Steve Kerr or Chauncey Billups. I'm going to side with Kerr 100% of the time. And Kerr annihilated Billups in that second half.
And I brought this up with you the other night, but remember the New Orleans playoff series, right?
Yeah.
Where Alvin Gentry just coached circles around Terry Stotts. And Terry Stotts is not a bad basketball coach. How do you think Chauncey Billups is going to do in a playoff series when coaching and physicality, everything gets ramped up? And coaches don't win. I mean, they do. Don't get me wrong. This makes sense, I promise. But they don't win regular season games. They make a difference in postseason games.
That's right. Let's go back to the phones. Ron in Salt Lake. Ron, my man, you're up. What's up? Fire away.
Burkhardt, I got to give you some major props tonight, man. You're on your A game. I agree 1,000% with every point that you're making. I'm screaming at the TV tonight why Thibault isn't in the game. If I'm not mistaken, he started off 3 for 3, maybe 4 for 4, just nailing those threes. He's a great off-the-ball screener. He understands, what his role is on the offensive end. Cam Reddish led the team in turnovers tonight with 4. 3 of them were atrocious and absolutely just terrible turnovers. He shot very early in the shot clock numerous times, thinking he was the number one option. So I don't know why Thibault isn't playing at least 28 points a game. But anyway, Chad, I got to ask you a much more positive question. Have you watched any of the Netflix series Full Swing?
Not yet, but I'm going to. It's on my list, and I am going to watch. Is it as great as I've been told it is?
It's fantastic. I haven't seen all of them. I actually just finished watching one about Colin Morikawa and Tony Finau, but it's awesome. You'll love it. So wait till you've got some time where you can, in fact, maybe even when the season's over, which is probably going to be sooner than we had all hoped because we're not making the playoffs. There's no way. But it's frustrating tonight if the coaching staff and the team just could keep it together with any 20-point lead or more that we've had this year, we would be right there battling for 4th position. And it's just a nightmare to see the mistakes from a coaching perspective, the rotations. So it is what it is. Golf season's around the corner. Full Swing is getting me excited. The Masters is in about a month. And I'll be practicing my golf game while I'm watching the rest of the NBA teams and not the Blazers in the playoffs. Love you guys.
You got it. There you go. Appreciate the phone call, Ron. Blazers outscored 75-40 in the second half. That's bad. Let's go to Sean in Damascus. My man, what's going on, Sean?
What's happening, Chad? Hey, man. I'm sure some of the viewers caught it, but about midway through the fourth quarter, I noticed Lillard had some unpleasant words for Billups. I'm not going to say he was barking at him, but like you just pointed out, 75-40 in the second half, almost getting doubled up. It's like, where's that in-game adjustment? We went up by 23, Steve Kerr. He has some in-game adjustments. And looking at our Blaze staff, that Brooks guy, it's not Mark Brooks or Scott Brooks, but that guy, that assistant coach for the OKC, he's more qualified than Billups. Wouldn't you say so?
Absolutely. Appreciate the phone call. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. We'll come back on fifth quarter. Keep the phone calls coming. 503-248-0620. Appreciate the phone call, Sean. 75-40 in the second half. Unreal. Jordan Poole with 29 points, 23 for Clay. They got 21 from Dante DiVincenzo and a near triple-double from Draymond. 12 points, 9 boards, 8 assists. And the Warriors cruise to a 123-105 victory. And the Blazers fall apart there in the second half. They're back home tomorrow night to take on the Pelicans. Second of a back-to-back, 7 o'clock tip from Mona. We'll hear from Chauncey Billups when we come back, and back to your phone calls. You got the fifth quarter on 620 Rip City Radio.
Hey there, YouTube. I'm going to chime in here. We got a few minutes left in the commercial break. Going to answer some questions here. Bradley's been asking some. He didn't understand what the pick protection I was talking about was. Tried to explain it there the best I could in a limited amount of characters that I could use. But the main part is because the step-in rule, you cannot trade picks in consecutive years, your first-round picks, Bradley. So if they traded a 2023 first-round pick, for instance, they could not trade a 2024 first-round pick with it. They could trade 25, 23, 25, and 27, right? You also cannot trade a pick more than 7 years into the future. Right now, since the 2024 pick, or excuse me, the 2023 pick right now is protected, that first-round pick is protected through 2028, meaning they cannot trade a pick from now to 2029. Their 7 years are up, so they have no first-round picks. Now, they can trade their other first-round picks. So if New York makes the playoffs, that pick goes to Portland. They can trade that one because they would still have a pick. And the step-in rule only applies to future first-round picks. On draft night, it is no longer considered a future pick. It's considered a current pick. So on draft night, should the Blazers miss the playoffs, get into the lottery, on draft night, they would be able to trade their 2023 pick and the New York Knicks pick that they got. So they would have 2 first-round picks that they could trade on draft night. But, again, if they make the playoffs, the 2024 pick would then be protected, go to Chicago should they make the playoffs in 2024. But that would mean 2024 through 2028 still protected. They would have no future first-round picks they could trade. Though that pick is protected through 2028, which means they technically couldn't trade 2029, but they would next year be able to open up 2030 as a first-round pick to trade. So it's very, very tough, but that is how that all works out. So hopefully that answers your question, gives you a little bit of a better understanding of how that pick protection works. Let's look at the chat here. We got about 2.5 minutes before we're back from commercial break. Let's see what we got. Oh, Rachel wants to know if Chad thinks Nurk will be back next season. Yeah, oh gosh. I know you're not asking me, but that's a great question. I think he might be draft night fodder to get out of here. It's the team is working decently without him, and he hasn't been healthy enough to stay on the court. You got to figure something out there. I like Nurk when he's good. It's just a matter of getting good Nurk as much as you can, and right now they're just not getting that. I hope he returns quickly and is able to play again. Can someone figure out what the split stats are for Jeremy Grant before and after the Kendall Jenner announcement? Robert, I'll look that up during the next segment, see if I can figure it out. All right, I gotta go backtrack, see when the Kendall Jenner news broke. But you know what? That would make sense. That would make sense. Now, what else do we got? We got a lot of fire bill-ups all from Nick, because Nick likes to spam the chat. He's good at that. Sean thinks the players they're getting minutes right now or are vying for a roster spot next year. I think that's fair. But then that runs into our problem that we have, right? Right, Sean? The fact that you haven't picked a lane. Are you playing to figure out what you have next year? Are you trying to make the playoffs this year, like you say? Are you trying to tank and build for next year, which makes sense as well? Just say one. Pick one. Because if we know what you're doing, I think you have a little bit easier time swallowing that pill, right? At least for me. All right, guys. Don't go anywhere. We'll cut back to break. We're about 30 seconds back. You'll get more Chad here on the fifth quarter.
It's time for the Portland Trailblazers Drive of the Night, here on the fifth quarter, hosted by Chad Dewing, 620 Rip City Radio. Drive of the Night is brought to you by Dick's Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram of Wilsonville, ready to compete with the lowest prices in town.
Thompson drives, goes up to the rim. He missed the layup. Rebound, Green stripped out of his hands and picked up by Watford. Watford leads the break on the other end. Leaps and finds Dame cutting. Dame steps through, off balance, puts it in his foul. What a shot for Damian Lillard.
All right, fifth quarter, Chad Dewing, Chris Burkhardt with you. Telephone number 503-248-0620. We'll get back to the phone calls in just a moment, but let's step into the coach's corner.
It's time for the Coach's Corner with Chauncey Billups on Blazers Game Day, presented by Henderson & Daughter. Henderson & Daughter has been supplying superior design service, quality windows, entry doors, patio doors, and window installation to the Portland and Southwest Washington area since 1977. Before you decide to just replace your current windows or exterior doors, have our designers present you with a free in-home design consultation and estimate to show you the different styles we carry that can give your home a fresh new look. Henderson & Daughter, your window and door experts.
All right, let's all take a listen to the genius Coach Billups on what happened tonight in San Francisco. The Blazers outscored 75-40 in the second half.
Chauncey, what did they do in that third quarter, especially, obviously, second half as well, but particularly in the third?
Yeah, I thought, we knew that they were going to make runs throughout the game. We had a great start, great first half. We talked at halftime. I said, that they're going to make a run. This is what they do. Third quarters is just what they do. Don't react to it, but everybody just stay calm, stay poised. And we didn't do a good job of that. And I thought we lost trust in passing the ball. We passed it really well in the first half. Even when they went to their box and won, we still stayed spaced. And we got the ball to the middle, and we just passed it around. Guys hit shots, guy made shots, and was aggressive. And we just didn't do that in the second half. In particular the third quarter. I don't think we shot good shots. And we lost trust in the pass, and that it hurt us, man.
You talk about losing trust. Is that when they're forcing the ball out of Dame's hand? Is that kind of what you're talking about there, or is that situations?
Well, all situations. Obviously they're forcing the ball out of Dame's hands, but there's going to be passes to be made. So when we get off of it, we then have to make the proper play because you got numbers. You got the 4-on-3, and it's only for a small amount of time because they do a good job of getting back into play. So you got to try to find a way to make the right pass and then to shoot the right shot. In this building, you can't shoot quick, poor shots, and they get out and go, and they score so quickly on you. You can't turn it over, and you can't take bad shots. So I thought, we got ourselves in a tough spot, and it was almost kind of similar to the last time we played here.
You mentioned the offense and some lapses there in the third quarter, but it seemed as though the Warriors were really easily able to score in the paint. What defensive lapses would you say happened in the second half?
Yeah, we started changing and we were switching, a lot of Clay's pin downs, and then we started switching everything. Once they started to get it going, we switched a few times, and they were just rolling. And then, they started attacking Dame. Dame was in foul trouble. And, he picked up his fourth. We challenged it. We lost it. And so we knew that they were going to continue to attack him. So, obviously, we have to change our defense. He's in foul trouble. We got to try to protect him. We started doubling. They did a good job of finding the open guy and then moving the ball around and making shots, similar to how we wanted to do and what we did do in the first half. So they made us pay for that.
There's Coach Billups following the Blazers' 123-105 loss tonight in San Francisco. Let's go back out to the phones. Let's go to Aaron in Vancouver. Aaron, you're up on the fifth quarter. What's up? Fire away.
Hey, Chad.
What's up, Aaron?
So here's a date in NBA history where I feel it started going downhill for me. Do you know what happened on July 8th, 2010?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Not off the top of your head. It was this big cable broadcast called The Decision. It was the opening of let's build these super teams, and the way LeBron crapped on his fans' hearts right there, and the whole NBA just nobody. I don't know how to voice all my frustrations all at once right now, but I don't like the way the NBA is headed. The super teams it's so hard to watch, and the players that don't play every night, Chad, it's so hard for me to voice all of my frustrations right now at once, but we don't have any leadership in our front office. I feel like we don't have a head coach that can coach. We haven't tried building a team, like a legitimate team through free agency to help out Damian Lillard. He's rotting away in Portland. We aren't going to make the playoffs this year, everybody. We're not. We don't have the pieces. We have never tried putting the pieces in place. We have never tried recruiting the pieces to put in place to help Damian Lillard. It's just not happening. Like, this is what's happening, Portland. This is what's happening. It's not fun basketball. The whole NBA is very hard to watch for me. We need help. I don't know what the help is, but that's not my job. My job is to root on my team, and it's very hard for me to root on my team when we're just getting blown out night after night. We get a little sprinkle here and there of like, oh, Lillard scores 71. That's great, but he has nobody else to help him. Nobody. We don't have a team. This is hard. What are we doing, Portland? Get a real coach. Get a real general manager. Get some players in there. Dame's going to have to recruit, and that's what the NBA is right now. Why do we have to recruit players? Why can't we players like come in, get drafted, gel? It's not happening that way. I just don't understand. It's so hard to watch basketball. My senior year in high school was 2000 when we lost to the Lakers in Game 7. That tore my heart apart right there. I thought my senior year was going to be perfect. We would have beaten the Pacers and we would have had a championship. It has been downhill since then. We've had little sprinkles of goodness. We made it to the Western Conference Finals against Utah in 2019, but we were way outmatched there. This is so bad right now, Portland. We are so far away. We need to really voice opinions. We need to make signs and put them up when we're at games. We need better. We deserve better. We haven't won since 1977.
All right, I'm curious, Aaron, if you were to go to a game with one sign, what would your message be on the sign?
What would my message be?
Yeah, what would you write on your sign if you took one to Moda?
Let's get a Portland, get a general manager that wants to build an actual team around Dame. Short and sweet. That's what I'd put.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate
It's
the phone
not
call,
happening.
Aaron. No, I understand, and I appreciate your call, and trust me, I understand your frustration. You know, he highlights a big issue there, and that's ownership. You know, like Chris said, Joe Cronin has pretty good acumen. He's young, but the issue is it's not Joe Cronin, the general manager. It's Jody Allen and Bert Colt. They're the two in charge. They're the ones calling the shots, and the Blazers are going to continue to flounder until they have better leadership at the very top. At least that's what I believe. 503-248-0620. Has it been that long? 2010 was the decision by LeBron? Was that long ago, Burkhardt? 13 years? Yikes.
Big yikes.
I
Wow.
did watch it live, too. It was brutal.
Yeah.
I had to tune in. I knew it was one of those things like, oh, this is going to be good. And then you watch and you're like, oh, this is better than I thought. Very awkward.
Yeah.
I'm taking my talents to South Beach, one of the all-timers right there.
That was an all-timer. It was a sign of things to come because it's been all about LeBron ever since, right? Yeah, I get what our previous caller was laying down. I appreciate the passion for his Blazer fandom. I just my only pushback is like it's bad right now, but it ain't that bad. Like, would you rather be the Houston Rockets right now? Like, yeah, they might get Wembanyama, but they have nothing around him, and that team is just dysfunctional as all can be. Or like Orlando's in that same boat, and they haven't been good for a long time. San Antonio might be a long time before they jump back up, right? Like it ain't that bad. It's just unfortunate, and it sucks. I get it, but it ain't that bad. And I also like to point out when anyone says, we haven't won a championship since '77. Yes, that is a long time, but keep in mind that there are teams like the Denver Nuggets who have never won. Teams like the Indiana Pacers who have never won.
The problem is we weren't around for the championship in '77.
It could be worse. I mean, I'm fortunate enough. I gotta admit, I was fortunate enough to be alive for it. But I'm a Red Sox fan. I was a Red Sox fan before that miraculous weekend in October in 2004. It's a great documentary, by the way. 3 Nights in October. Go watch it. Right? I was a fan before that. But the organization and fan base that had to wait 80-plus years between championship victories, man, the curse of the Bambino, right? Could be worse. It could be worse.
I think he said that the Blazers got to the Western Conference Finals against Utah in 2019. It was actually the Warriors they played. They lost to Golden State.
It was the Warriors. They got boat raced. Never forget the Myers-Leonard game, right?
Yeah, I understand the frustration. As we were talking about the other night, the Blazers haven't been legit title contenders for 23 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go back out to the phones. Victor in Turkey. Victor, welcome back to the fifth quarter. What's frustrating you tonight, my friend?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I was. I didn't watch the whole game. I just watched the last few minutes. I kind of expected that the Blazers not going to win against the Warriors because in their home court, they have a lot. That they have a loud crowd over there. Man, they stand up from the beginning of the game. I'm glad I'm not from California, man. I'm glad I'm not from California. I get tired, go over there standing up the whole, 48 minutes watching their games. I hate Warriors, and I hate Draymond Green or whatever he is. The best part of it I like when the Sharpie dropped the tomahawk jam over his head. I like Sharpie. Did you see that?
I did, yes. It was awesome.
That was the best. That was the best moment. I tell you, man. If you watch the whole game, I didn't watch the whole game, but that was the best moment. That was so high in the air, and Draymond Green went backwards. That was great to see, man. That was the best. I think that was the most exciting part of it. But you know me. I mean, I know a little bit about the sport. 3 months ago or 4 months ago, I said something about the coach. Not today, the other callers brought it up because I know I played the sport for 25 years. the coach is too relaxed, He's too relaxed. He's having fun over there. Whether the Blazers lose or they win, you can see it right on the TV. He's so relaxed. He's smiling. He's having fun. But compare that to Quinn Snyder. The Quinn Snyder when he went to Atlanta, the whole thing changed. The whole atmosphere changed. We couldn't get the Quinn Snyder, but I tell you, the Nate McMillan, who was fired, the Nate McMillan is better than the Chauncey Billups. Believe me or not, the Nate McMillan is better than Chauncey Billups. But I ask you a question. I think it's very hard for you to answer, my friend. My question is, who brought Chauncey to the Blazers? Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard was support of him. I mean, I know that. Maybe even some people they said on the
Well, it was Damian Lillard supported the idea of Chauncey Billups, but it was Neil Olshey that had his eye on Chauncey for quite some time before he made the hire because of their connection in L.A. when they both worked for the Clippers.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is if they can replace him, if that's a problem, I don't know. But as the other people, they said they have to do and also, they have to get rid of few players. They have to some players, maybe 2 or 3 of them. If they can buy some players, they can replace some players. Maybe they can they can do something. That's my point. If they can replace few players, they can do something. But I want to ask you, Chad. I want to ask you, who do you like the Blazer pick up? I mean, except that Victor, from France, Victor, whatever, that you like.
Wembanyama.
Beside him, what else? Because the Blazers need more than 1 or 2 players. What players you like? Because you know the names. I don't know all the names. What players you like from NBA that maybe Blazers they can buy or they can pick up?
All right, I appreciate the phone call, Victor. I'll get to those names here in just a moment. I'm assuming you're talking about guys outside of Victor Wembanyama that could be, players that the Blazers may have an eye on. I say Victor Wembanyama all the time because that's the guy that I want the most. He's 7'5", he can do everything, and that's the one player I look at and I think, man, Victor Wembanyama could change the fortunes of this franchise. He's that dominant. He's that good. And I've never heard so many experts woo on and on about one player like I have Victor in quite some time. Can you recall a player in recent history that people have been that head over heels about, like Wembanyama? Is there any recent comparison to a guy like that?
No, I mean, I brought up Chet earlier, but it wasn't the same. There was just a lot of people who thought he was the consensus pick. The first one comes to mind that this hoopla is like LeBron, right? So it's been a while for me at least. I can't think of one just been put on the spot.
Well, the top guys you're going to keep an eye on in this year's draft would be obviously Victor Wembanyama from France, 7'5". He plays the center position but can handle the ball like a guard, and he can shoot from distance. Scoot Henderson, point guard. He's with G League Ignite. 6'2", 195 pounds. After Victor, he's considered the number 2 guy. Brandon Miller, who you know from all the news he's created recently at Alabama, plays the forward spot, usually a small forward, 6'9", 200 pounds. I mean, just watch him. He's a superstar. Cam Whitmore out of Villanova, 6'7", small forward. Amon Thompson. So there's a number of guys. I guess Victor's known as the guy, the kind of the jewel of the class, but it's a deep draft, it's a talented draft, and there's a lot of guys. Now, for the Blazers, the question is, what do you do? Do you, if they were to jump into the top 4, do you take a player? Or do you use the rights of that player, draft a player, and use the rights in a trade?
Which one of these 2 players do you want? Okay, I'm going to shout out Randy from earlier in our chat, but I got 2 players here for you. I'm just going to name their stats. NBA players. Tell me which one you want. Player A, okay? Player A, 22 points per game, 3 assists, 4 rebounds, 44% from three-point range. Okay? Player 2, 18.5 points, 1.5 assists, 4 rebounds, shooting 35% from three-point range. Which player would you rather have?
Player A.
Player A. What if I told you player A was Jeremy Grant? Player B was Jeremy Grant after news broke that he's supposedly dating Kendall Jenner.
Oh, dang it. It's a jinx, man. You don't get involved with that family unless you want bad things to happen to your game and your finances.
I mean, that's a big drop-off in three-point percentage and scoring.
Well, but the way he's playing, I mean, there is a fall-off. You can see it. It does make me a little bit nervous about the type of cash they're going to have to dole out to keep him on the roster.
We'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting summer for him. I still like him on this team. The 5-year deal that he's looking for, I think, makes sense. They're not going to have to max him out by any stretch. But they still need to put pieces around him and Dame if they want to do something. I still think Ant's the guy, man. Like he's your trade piece. He's your trade piece. Or Dame, if you decide that that's the future you want to go with. But continuing to build around the two of them is just this is where it gets frustrating, Chad, because yes, they're not the exact same player, but you're doing the CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard thing all over again. You're afraid to give up your best assets for fear of what could happen, but you will not get better until you decide to give up one of those assets. Like you have to take risks, right?
You got to take risks.
You have to. And this team won't. And they haven't. They sold low on CJ McCollum because the time to trade him was like 2019. That was like peak time to trade him. The unfortunate part with Ant as well is in that short amount of time, from the late teens to now, the shooting guard position has come to a point where you can plug and play so many players and go get your 18, 19, 20 points per night, right? Gary Trent's been doing it in Toronto. Dante DiVincenzo gets buckets when he gets minutes. Jordan Poole, right? You can just start going down the list of shooting guards who are just bucket getters. There's so many of them that the value isn't what it was. But in 2018, that wasn't the case. That was the forefront of this movement of shooting becoming more of a thing in that position, right? So you could have sold super high on CJ, but you were afraid. So you waited. And right now you're kind of doing the same thing. Because if you do that with Ant, okay, so you're going to sit here. You're not going to trade Ant 3 years from now. The window on Dame's prime is closed. And if the window on Dame's prime is closed, then the market for him isn't great. So now you have no way to put pieces around Ant. And it's lather, rinse, repeat. It's Groundhog's Day, man.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I think that's why a lot of people are frustrated. I was looking at the numbers. So the Blazers got outscored 75-40 in the second half tonight. The Warriors in that second half connected on 67.4% of their shots, including 7 of 14 from 3. Like, that's horrible defense.
Horrible. And so you sit Matisse Thybulle, who's your best defender.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so annoying.
Yeah. It's just a tough spot to be in. I like you and I can sit here and ramble and then run around in circles and contradict ourselves eventually. But feel like that's the Blazers in a nutshell, right? Just going around in a circle, haven't picked a straight line.
75-40 in the second half. Unfortunately, that's not surprising. I'm just worried about this upcoming stretch they've got. Tomorrow night, they got to come back home and play New Orleans. And then they're going on this 6-game road trip. I mean, with no Ant and no Nurk, it is hard to see how they're going to find enough in the tank to get wins on a consistent basis. It's just hard to see it.
Yeah.
Even with games like they have at Orlando, when you're going up against young athletic teams with length, that's going to be a problem for them.
Well, look at how rough it's been against Oklahoma City, and that they have length on length on length. They have Portland's number.
All right, let's go back out to the phones, 503-248-0620. Let's go to Ralph in East Amity. Ralph, the landscaper. What's going on, Ralphie?
Hey, Chan, how are you?
Very well.
It sounds like you're kind of, a little bit flummoxed, I guess would be the word. You're like the cartoon character that that bangs his head when he's trying to chase the rabbit or the monkey into the cave, and he bangs his head on the cave entrance, and then his head back and forth like that?
I've seen that, and that's exactly what it feels like this time of year in Trailblazer land.
Yeah, well, you know, they let's be realistic here. I think the idea is to, you know, you want to tank, but you don't want to say you're tanking. But you definitely want to make sure that you so-called tank. And what I mean by that is get higher draft picks and make those moves. But, you know, tell me this, Chen. You know, you're more the basketball expert. I mean, I know about life and relationships and business and finance and you know, I mean, I can go on, but you're more of a basketball expert there. So when you compare these two coaches tonight, it's kind of a night and day. Hey, let me show you how to coach, young buck. And old Steve Kerr there just kind of does his thing and has his players do their thing, and you know, off we go. You know, it's off to the boat races, and it happens. And I think that's the biggest problem here is the coach and the architect, if you will. Those guys in Golden State, they have it kind of going because, you know, everybody thinks, oh, well, Steph's out. Oh, boy, they're going to be terrible. And, you know, sure, they had a bad year when they were down two good players, but then all of a sudden they're just, you know, on the uprise, generally speaking, again. And it's because they have an architect and a coach. And, of course, they're willing to spend money, too, but that's, you know, that's part of it. Am I crazy here, Chan, or am I on track?
No, you're on track. From what I know about the Warriors organization from being down there, number one, you've got an owner at the top in Joe Lacob who is a forward thinker. And I know that he encourages communication from his staff, and he encourages people to share ideas because he doesn't want to fall into groupthink where you only have two or three people sharing ideas, because that's when you get stuck in a rut of making the same type of a decision. So you've got that, which I think is critical, a forward-thinking owner who is willing to spend, but he encourages his people, empowers them, and that creates you know, a lot of good ideas and creativity from his staff. I think the other part, too, is that there's a true marriage there where you've got, you know, Bob Myers, the GM, who is beloved around the NBA, well-liked, but he's really smart and a good visionary, and he and Steve Kerr are connected and share the same type of vision. They buy into that. They have conviction, and then everything that is done is done with purpose to fulfill that mission or that vision, but it's supported at the very top from ownership. And so when you've got the synergy flowing from ownership into the front office, into the coaching staff, into the players, then it's very easy to see how they can end up in the type of situation where they're competing for championships year in and year out, and they've been doing so now for almost a decade. It's impressive.
Yeah, that's what I think, you know, and I don't want people to pick on Jody, you know, and say, oh, it's her fault. You know, imagine you getting put in that position. You're a sister, and your brother is very wealthy, and all of a sudden, bang, here you are. You're having to manage multi-billions of dollars of assets and sell some and donate some, and it's a big, gigantic deal. So don't, you know, oh, Jody this, Jody that. I don't want to hear any of that because, you know, most of you people don't understand what it's like to have, you know, two nickels to rub together, let alone, you know, several $billion like that to sort of manage and deal with. And then there's the stipulations, from what I understand, and Mr. Allen left that the selling the team and when and where and all that. And you got the Seahawks and that, you know, the whole thing. There's a lot more than, you know, just saying, oh, it's, you know, it's nice and Jody's this and that, you know, and she's not the sports nut that Paul was. So you got to give her some slack. She's kind of riding out a bull that's out there cruising around, and there's two bulls, and she has to put her leg on the other bull over there. It's a tough deal, you know.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. And she's also, because of the position she was put in, she's having to trust the people that were already there who are around her, and she's trusting them because she doesn't have the answers herself. And unfortunately for her, you know, it might be Burt Cole or somebody else that may not have, you know, the best decisions or the best ideas, or they may not have the best interest or her best interest at heart. So that's tougher. That is a tough position. Brutal.
Yeah. versus Paul, who would just, he would figure it out and scratch his head and do some coding in his brain, and then all of a sudden, bang, he would make a change that would surprise people. He canned Jim Mora up in Seattle, and that was a surprise to people, and he's made changes on the Blazers just all of a sudden. And generally, they turned out pretty good. But, yeah, I think the problem is coaching. Hey, Chan, I wanted to mention, I know somehow you and Lizzie got hooked up on the text there. Lizzie manages my office. But first of all, she said something about you that I thought, yeah, this is true. She said he's enjoyable to text with, but he's often a little bit aloof, is what she said. And so, that's a compliment from her. She's not one of these girls that sits there and blows up her phone all day. So when she's texting you, that's a good sign, Chan. So, and that is complimentary about you. That's a good sign too.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, and she said you said you were wondering why I hadn't called in a couple of weeks. Well, this time of year is when I kind of go into not like Aaron Rodgers, but I sort of go into thinking mode and forward thinking mode and all this. And I had one little distraction last week. I don't know if she told you about this, but there's this friend of mine who kind of wants to think like he's a big timer, but he's not. Now you have people like that in your life, I'm sure, Chan. That
no question.
Oh yeah, I'm a big timer, but they're really not. He's one of these guys. I've known him for years, and I sort of chuckle at him behind his back. Well, he came along and he said to me, "Hey, Ralph, why don't you kind of break out of the brands of vehicles you buy?" And I said, well, because they're, I know what I'm getting when I buy certain kinds of trucks and certain kinds of cars and all that. And he said, oh yeah, you're just a fanboy of these brands. And I said, oh, okay, is that it? And he goes, yeah, until you prove me otherwise. So, I don't know if you know this, but Lizzie is much like Lucy, who runs my towing business. They could go out and spend a lot of money. Lucy can go out and spend $500,000, and I know that it's going to be a good investment. She's done that twice now, and it's panned out financially. Lizzie, not quite as much. She's not to Lucy's level, but she's got, I always tell her $300 to $400 that she can spend, and I want to see a return on it. So you know what she did? She heard of this conversation with this clown, and I had to chuckle at it. She went out and she said, hey, I need you to be in the office and sign these papers. So I see this, I guess they call it a G-Wagon. You know what that is, Chan?
I've never heard of a G-Wagon. What's that?
It's a Mercedes makes it. It's like a kind of a big box thing and multi-passenger. It's like Mercedes taking the, let's take the whole family and the relatives and the aunt and the uncles.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen a G-Wagon. Those are kind of nice.
Yeah, and so she bought one of those, and it's way past $100,000 for one of those, and then she also bought a Porsche on the same day.
What?
Yeah, and I said, what do you, well, the G-Wagon to the Porsche, she just said, look, Ralph, this thing's 2 years old and it's a rare model, and here, let me show you. She showed me some listings, and it's like here's an immediate $50,000 return on one of those if I decided to sell it, which I don't know if I will. And I said, why'd you get? She goes, well, you heard, I won't say his name. She heard him spouting off about, oh, you're loyal to these other brands. Well, these ones are outside that box, and you got those. That's the Porsche story, is easily flip it. I may flip it. And then the G-Wagon is kind of an interesting one, Chan, because I told you, she's in touch with our crew a lot more than I am. And a lot of these fellas here, they're thrilled to work for me because I pay well, but they also, end up bringing grandma and mom and dad and sometimes, aunts and cousins and uncles across the border legally, and they bring them over, and they kind of all live in one residence, and they may or may not have any kind of vehicle. You're getting my picture here, Chan?
I am, yes, very much so.
And then there's 2 or 3 of these families that are in that situation that work for me, and a couple that may or may not. But she said, I've noticed that they ride around together. If one of them has a car, then, all of a sudden you might see grandma and the daughter and the granddaughter in the back seat. And, you've probably seen that, right, Chan?
I have.
It's like, I don't want to say the hoopty, but it's the hoopty, and it has a couple generations, a couple neighbors, and, it's sort of like, wow, what is this, Well, she got the G-Wagon because it's going to have, like, availability for 3 or 4 families. And, they can all go to the grocery store at the same time, and they can all go to, a Portland Timber game or a Blazer game or whatever, all at the same time. And, ride together and be together. And when they all come piling out of that thing, I'm just going to chuckle. I'm going to say, you need to tell me, Lizzie, when they're going somewhere, I want to be off in the corner in the parking lot, and I want to see them all come piling out of that thing like it's a prison work crew, and I want to see them come out and just see the looks on people's faces when they jump out of that thing. There's 20 deep or however many are going to fit in that deal. It's going to be entertaining to see that. But now tell me, Chan, is that a good investment?
Yeah. If you got the money and you want to see the smiles and the people barreling out of the rig, why not?
Yeah. Well, not only that, Chan, but if I need to. She told me, she said, look, if you want to haul something, well, you can haul something in there, but, I don't need that. That's, chump change to haul something like that. But it's a good investment in the business because it's well-being and it's comfort and it's, a little bit of luxury and everything for all these family members. And all of a sudden, here we go, they're happy and they just want to keep working and work hard because you name somebody who provides a vehicle for their employees like that and takes care of them and their immediate families and their, incoming aunts and uncles and relatives like that. You can't name anybody like that,
No, I can't.
Yeah. So now you driving the Corolla, Chan, is that right?
I've got a grocery getter. I'm not driving something that cost $140,000.
Well, I don't, here's the thing, Chan, I just for my amusement, I would get you something that might, maybe 50, but I don't want to do that because then your boss at that cheap radio station that doesn't run the heat at night and doesn't hire somebody to put the names that says Fan and Rip City on the YouTube, that cheap boss of yours will see it and go, oh, we don't need to,
I don't want to drive anything that's nicer than what my boss has. No way.
Yeah, and, then they won't take Burkhardt, who I've heard a few times doing a high school or college basketball game the other day and then hosting the Blazers Monday night. And
he's doing everything.
He's doing everything, and that'll affect him too.
Yeah,
and I don't want that, Chan.
I don't want dissension amongst the ranks, man. No way. No way.
No. And so I'm not. You can just keep driving your grocery getter, and that's okay for you. Now if you have problems and get in a pinch, then you reach out to Lizzie and she'll talk to me. You know that, I hope, right?
I appreciate that. I know that I've got you in my back pocket if need be, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah, well, anyway, Chan, I'm going to let you go, and I just wanted to check in because Lizzie said you were wondering, and, it's I don't want to have you think I don't care or anything.
Well, next time she reaches out, I'll let her know that you chimed in, Ralphie.
All right. Well, you have a good-looking night tonight here, Chan, and let's hope this team figures this thing out a little bit. And I just think they need to tank without saying they're tanking, but people will smell it right away. It's like a good Sunday roast, Chan. You can smell that from 4 houses away.
Yeah,
remember in Oklahoma?
Sitting in the crock pot for like 6 hours during church. You come home and the aroma's filling the house.
Yeah, Nana used to do that for you all the time, didn't she?
All the time. Everything. You know it.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember that there's nothing that smells better than a good Sunday roast, except for one thing, and I'm not going to tell you what that is because then you'll get hungry and want to quit the show early. So
I appreciate that.
You have a good night, Chad. See you later.
Have a good looking night. There's Ralph the landscaper. I love how Burkhardt. You know how, like Ralph the landscaper, even when he starts out with the basketball take, it always seems to circle around and get back to his wealth, success, and philanthropy. Or I can't even say the word now. I can't say it.
Ow, now, brown cow. I can't speak because my mic's not on. Philanthropy.
Yeah.
Philanthropy.
I can't say it now.
Lanolin. Like all the Ron Burgundy quotes.
Need one more water.
Yeah. Philanthropy.
Philanthropy. Oh, terrible. What's one of those words I can't say is Massachusetts. How do you say Massachusetts? Massachusetts. It's just there's a couple of words that I'm not very good at saying. Those would be a couple of them.
We need to send you to do some philanthropy in
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
Well, sometimes I'll be watching like TV or I'll hear something on the radio and I'm like, I'll try to say the word out loud when I'm alone and I'm like, yeah, I can't do it.
That's all right. I stumble on easy words most of the time. So
I do agree with this assessment of the Warriors. Like, it would be nice to have that type of synergy between ownership, front office, coaching staff, everything. Like, I wish we had that here. Some version of that type of synergy at the top of the ranks and through the rest of the front office. Now, I want to run this by you. This is a good tweet that I got, and I want to get your take on it.
all right.
Because I don't have an answer. Where did it go? Let me see if I can find it here. Problem is, after Blazer games broke up oh, here it is. Jennifer Delzer chimed in and said, Chad, I have never followed a team that ran out of gas on such a regular basis as this team. It is painful. Tonight, I just couldn't stand the agony of listening to the end of the game, and that is very unusual for me. Why do you think that is that this team runs out of gas? I already mentioned before, they lead the league this year in double-digit leads forfeited.
Well,
what is it?
Easy answer is the Pacific Northwest has some of the highest gas prices in the country. So you always can't afford to fill up your tank.
Yeah, you're saving it. I'm one of those guys where, like, right now I'm an E, and I don't like to stop in Oregon because I like to pump my own gas.
Yeah.
So I'm going to attempt to drive back to the Couve and hope I don't run out of gas.
Oh, I did that. I did that when I lived in Vancouver.
I'm always risking it. I don't know why I do that.
Because when you're used to pumping your own gas, when you're used to pulling in to a gas station, getting up to the pump, getting out and just starting the pump, rather than pulling into the gas station here, waiting for the attendant to finish up the other 3 pumps, then look at you in the other car and decide which one of you came first, go to the other car who has a chit-chatter in the front seat who wants to talk to him. Oh, do you have a loyalty number? Yeah, try 555-1555. Oh, that didn't work? Okay, try that again. But, no, you could have been done. You could have been done and on the road, but no, you're just sitting there waiting, so I'm with you.
But I think this team, there's a lot of reasons as to why they run out of gas. I think it could be too dependent upon Dame or too dependent upon Dame and Ant to make shots, meaning when the shots aren't falling, it's easy for teams to get back into games. I think part of the issue, too, that we've seen with the Blazers is they've played from behind a lot this year. In the first half, they utilized the energy to get back into a game, and then because they expended so much to get back into the game, they end up falling apart in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that was honestly my answer. I was going to say I think it's just because I think this team tries defensively, they just don't know what they're doing. So they waste energy there. And then when they get down, then the offense is just you have to go hardcore to try to get back. And just like you said, at that point, you've just wasted so much energy on both sides of the floor. Like you look at a team like Golden State, even tonight when they went on their run, when they get moving, they play with a high amount of energy, but it's an efficient use of that energy. There's like a guy like Draymond Green, who's one of the best defenders in the league for his entire career. Like, there's no wasted movement from that guy, right? Everything's done with a purpose. He's not lost on the court. So the energy that he's expending is useful energy. I think you have so much energy the Blazers use trying to get back in position because they were out of position, trying to get around a pick and find the guy that they lost defensively. How many times are you seeing a guy sprinting to the three-point line to get out to a defender, right? And then you get going back offensively, and you were once up by 20, but now you're down by 20, and you're trying to get back, just like you said, and now you're wasting so much energy trying to find an open shot. Like, the legs just go.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, too, could be what I was mentioning earlier about being one-dimensional, that when you rely on your offense and shot making, when those shots don't fall, you can see the team, they get deflated. That leads to easy buckets for the other team, and then that snowball happens.
Mm-hmm.
and then it's a barrage like we saw from the Warriors tonight.
Yeah, and then you get the twofold thing, which is what happened tonight, right? Where you start trying to put in some guys who are more offensive-minded because you're down by so much, but then those guys aren't your defenders, and now they are wasting mad energy on that side to try to overcompensate for it, and then you just get tired. You just the team is part of it too. Is just because we've talked about this since the offseason, the team itself is not well balanced. When you get that balance and you get to focus on your one job and do that job, then you aren't trying to make up for everyone else's shortcomings. I mean, look at Josh Hart. Dude, he's starting at small forward forever, playing out of position.
Out of position.
You can look at the stats right now. He has still played many minutes at small forward with the Knicks, but his uptick in the minutes he's played at shooting guard isn't a good one. He's played more minutes at his natural position in New York than he has in Portland, and they started 6-0 since the trade.
Let's go out to Brian. Brian, appreciate the phone call. Warriors get the win tonight, 123-105. What was your take on what you saw go down in San Francisco tonight?
It's good to hear you, Chad, and also Chris. And I'm getting up there a little in years, but I'm like that Dave and Aaron and a few of those characters. I believe the Blazers do have some positives. In 53 years, this is my memory, in 53 years they've been into the playoffs at least around 35 times. 35. You can check it out. Now, when you think about what's been going on, Seattle Seahawks, 1 out of 3 in the World Championships. The Blazers, 1 out of 3 in the championships. Those early 90s teams, they were good. We had an original captain of the first Blazers, first, second year. That guy worked his way up. Chemeketa Community College, Mount Hood Community College. He becomes the head coach. They got it together. There is that chemistry that comes together. Our last guy that made first team all defense was Buck Williams. Now, I remember hearing that. And I repeat again, I could say positively, Chauncey, get some excitement, get it moving. We've only lost, 1 or 2 games when we score over 122 points this year. Now, think about what I'm saying on statistics. And who should be ashamed of the Christians in 53 years? Terry Porter, boy, he was good. I was in a lottery, was able to take my son. For me, it was rare. I went to see a game in the playoffs, and we beat San Antonio Spurs. I'm in nowhere in the category of the seasoned fans. God bless them. But, we won that game, Chad, 138-132 in 3 overtimes. And Terry Porter only had to make 6 threes. And it was at the critical time. Clyde Drexler, phenomenal team player. He had to work through in the beginning with Kiki Vandeweghe, but he stayed. Clyde Drexler. And I know Damon's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. He's not the player Clyde is. Sorry to tell you, folks. But I'll tell you, I say, Chauncey, go get him. It's not over till it's over, as Yogi Berra would say. And you guys do a good job. I just want to let you know I love you guys. I do love the Blazers. And I come and go when I can. And you know what? I've had to struggle in my lifetime. I'm proud of you surviving over 100 jobs in my lifetime. And you know what? It's been a wonderful life, and it's been a rough time. And you know what? The Blazers were wonderful. Bill Schonely. Hate to see we've lost his wife too, but he was a wonderful, wonderful ambassador. Jerome Kersey, wonderful ambassador. You know, if I were to suggest, maybe you need someone like Terry Porter to get something going, maybe even on the team as an assistant. I don't know. But I will tell you right now, go and get him. And if it comes back to where you got to pick up Nate McMillan, do that too. But right now you got Chauncey. He's supposed to be defense. But let's get offense also. So, food for thought.
I appreciate it, Brian. God bless.
You bet.
There you go. There's Brian. 503-248-0620. All right, we'll come back on fifth quarter. You're still welcome to jump on board if you'd like. This is the first of two back-to-back games. Tomorrow, New Orleans is going to be in town. 7 o'clock tip from Moda Center. 123-105, the final tonight at Chase Center in San Francisco. Warriors get the win, outscoring the Blazers 75-40 in the second half.
RefundsPro.com.
Royal Moore Buick GMC will not be undersold on any new vehicle. Royal Moore GMC, where you'll find discounts below MSRP. Plus, every new Buick and GMC comes with a lifetime powertrain warranty and 10 years unlimited roadside assistance. If you are looking for a new GMC or Buick, visit Royal Moore today, where you'll find discounts on MSRP and no dealer markup on any new vehicle. More is who we are. See for yourself and shop RoyalMooreGMC.com today.
time for the Nothing But Net Shot of the Night here on the fifth quarter, 620 Rip City Radio. The Nothing But Net Shot of the Night is brought to you by Oregon Dungeness Crab. Sustainably harvested, uniquely delicious, and always wild. Oregon Dungeness Crab always sounds good for dinner.
Dame tightly defended on the sideline, gets to the baseline, slips through, kicks to Reddish, rotates to Grant. Now to Thibault. Thibault for three. Yes! Matisse Thibault has matched a career high with 5 made threes. And he's got 15 points, which matches his season high.
I think Brian mentioned Dottie Shanley, the wife of Bill Shanley, who just recently passed away. Isn't it amazing how it always seems that when you have a couple that was married and together for such a long period of time that when one goes, the other one follows quickly?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Broken hearts, man.
Broken hearts. You lose the will to continue on. You don't want to live without your partner. That's kind of a beautiful thing. Not in a sad way, but it's beautiful to have two people who are connected that long and share that type of love together. That's cool.
Yeah, I get what you're laying down, man. I get what you're laying down. The body is a weird a weird thing sometimes. The brain and the body and the connections you make with people. Sometimes you need some of those connections for the body to work properly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they were married. Let's see here. Long time.
I wish I had the clip because we played it during our little memorial show we did for him when I hosted with Dwight that day. I don't know if you'd heard it. I'll find it for you, and we can play it on the fifth quarter one of these nights. But he was talking about how she was almost the one that got away, right? And he had her number, and like years after they had talked, he called her and called a few times and didn't get through. And he said, I'm going to call one more time. And so he called her, and she picked up, and he goes, you probably don't remember me. And she goes, how could I forget a sexy voice like that? And then Bill Shanley just goes, bingo, bango, bongo. That's how he tells the story. It's just so good. Like, I love it. And part of me's like, did she really say that? Or is that just his inner announcer in the way? Because he was such a good storyteller, right? That's what made him so good, because he could paint the picture. Like, and she just said, I could never forget a sexy voice like that. Like, it was great.
It was a sexy voice. No question about that. All right, so what do you expect tomorrow at Moda against New Orleans? We know the Pelicans are struggling mightily right now. I just don't know what to expect because the Blazers are so shorthanded, and that fatigue's going to be a factor tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. But last I checked, I do think Jonas Valanciunas is not playing. That is huge if that holds true, because with no Nurk, he was going to feast, right? This team also, I'm a fan of the Pelicans. I really like what they're building down there. But similarly to if the Blazers had to play without Dame, they just aren't the same without Zion, man. Zion changes the complexity of that team. I also think emotions are going to be high for this one. I mean, this is the first time Dame gets to face off against CJ McCollum one-on-one. And the NBA fans, I think, want to tune in. Blazer fans want to see how this plays out, the return of CJ McCollum. And I think emotions will be high in Moda, just not for the players, but the fans as well. It should be another electric atmosphere, a chance to see CJ return.
Now, if I recall, CJ returned last year, but Dame was not playing. Is that correct?
Maybe. I can't remember, honestly. It all blurs together. But it was they have played, the two teams have played. The two players have not been on the court at the same time, though.
Yeah, I'm not trying to correct you. I was just trying to think about that last year. I want to say I recall CJ returning, but of course Dame was not in.
I brought this stat up to you, and I don't know if people know, but it's like, is CJ returning tonight and all that? Yeah, Myers Leonard, who just signed on with the Milwaukee Bucks, has not made a return trip to Portland since that final game of the 2019 Western Conference Finals.
That's amazing.
He was traded or went to Miami, right? And the pandemic hit right before Miami was supposed to make their one trip out here. And then the next year hurt. Then you get traded to Oklahoma City. But by the time he's traded to Oklahoma City, they They waive him, so he's not going to come out. Then he sits out a year, and now he's with the Bucks, and the Bucks have already made their trip to Portland. So it will be, if he still plays again next year, it'd be the 2023-2024 season. And the last time he played on the Moda Center floor was the 2018-2019 season. That's interesting.
I just looked it up. CJ last year, I don't know what date, the exact date was the trade went down. He played a game at Portland on March 30th, 2022. Played 37 minutes, 25 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 56% shooting.
He's a baller.
That'll be fun to see he and Dame go head-to-head.
Watching him and Dame go head-to-head is going to be crazy. That's going to be crazy. I mean, say what you will about the championship aspirations, or they should have traded CJ sooner for assets, but as a fan, CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard gave you a lot of good memories as one of the best backcourts in the NBA.
No question. Unique because they could both catch and shoot, but also could break down the defense off the bounce. Unique pairing in the backcourt. I mean, offensively, unreal.
Yeah, both great dudes. I remember CJ McCollum is when his aunt passed away, right? And he missed a game. And I was on that road trip. I missed the first half of the road trip because my grandpa had just passed away. And his first game on that road trip was in Cleveland. And I walked up to him after, like, the press scrum there during shoot-around. I'm like, hey, CJ. And he kind of looked at me. I'm like, hey, just real quick, just want to let you know I know what you're going through right now because my grandpa just passed away, too. So when no one else knows exactly what you're going through at this moment, I'm here with you. He stood up, hugged me. He's like, do me a favor. Tell your grandma and your family that I send my condolences. I told that to my grandma. My grandma broke down. Broke down. My entire family is in tears because CJ McCollum took the time out of his day to say, hey, do me a favor and make sure you tell your family that I send them my best. Like, that's CJ McCollum. When you always throw the word around, so-and-so is a good dude, CJ McCollum is a good dude.
He's a good dude. They did a really good job. Paul Allen wanted to change the culture, and then Olshey came in. One thing Olshey did a really good job of was creating a locker room with guys that fit the culture and what they wanted to create. They did. I mean, money dudes.
Oh, that is one place where it is hard to fault Neil. There's plenty to fault him. Do not get me wrong. But there's only 2 players during that tenure that I can even really think of that did not gel within that locker room, and that's Wade Baldwin and Aaron Aflalo. Every other player they brought in, man, every other player loved being here, gelled with Dame, gelled with the locker room. Dude, Ed Davis was like the guy. Like he that was a guy who opened up 2 doors to get into that locker room and instantly was like, yeah, I respect that, dude.
Ed Davis is cool. All right, I think that's going to do it for us. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Tip-off is at 7. Pelicans will be in town from Moda, and we'll have a game day starting at 4:30. Justin Myers will have Rip City Mornings at 6, Rip City Drive at 3, game day at 4:30. So that's our lineup for tomorrow. And the Blazers will play another home game before they kick off that 6-game road trip Friday in Atlanta against the Hawks. All right, your final score tonight from Chase Center in San Francisco. The Golden State Warriors top the Portland Trailblazers 123-105. For my man Chris Burkhardt, I am Chad Doing. Thank you for your time tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow.